Hey everyone, we all know the 2004 Sumatra tsunami was an absolute tragedy, a catastrophe of unimaginable scale that literally altered our world. But today we're not going to look at fault lines or seismology. Instead, we're doing an astrological autopsy. We're going to dive into a fascinating, totally impartial explainer of how the ancient framework of Vedic astrology decodes this exact moment in time. Let's get right into it.
Alright, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to systematically break this chart down into 6 key parts. First, the exact day of the disaster. Second, the sun and moon, signifying violent waters. Third, the karmic axis. Fourth, the afflicted earth signs. Fifth, the malefics and timelines. And finally, putting it all together in the energetic synthesis.
Okay, kicking things off with part 1, the day of the disaster, December 26th, 2004.
So, we have to start with the undeniable physical reality. December 26, 2004, right around 7:58 a.m. local time, just off the coast of Sumatra. Now, you might be wondering why we need to be so incredibly precise. Well, these exact coordinates and timestamps are the literal inputs used to reconstruct the Vedic chart for this tragedy. In this system, a shift of just a few minutes fundamentally changes the entire snapshot of the sky. Precision here is absolutely crucial.
And because we have that precise timing, we get our first massive data point, the Lagna. Now the Lagna is basically just the ascendant, or the rising sign on the eastern horizon at the exact split second the earthquake hit. According to this reconstructed chart, the Lagna was sitting right in Sagittarius. And boom, just like that, the foundational stage, the whole geometry of the heavens is locked into place for the rest of our analysis.
Moving right along to Section 2, Sun and Moon, Violent Waters. Let's take a look at the luminaries.
Let's start with the sun. On that fateful morning, the sun was actually the strongest planet in the sky, and it was positioned in something called Mula. Now in Vedic astrology, Mula is a highly feared lunar mansion, or Nakshatra. It literally symbolizes the violent breaking of structures, uprooting, and, you guessed it, sudden natural catastrophes. And on the flip side, Venus, which is the planet representing the stability of water, was notably the absolute weakest planet in the chart. So right out of the gate, we're seeing this massive uprooting power paired with deeply unstable water. Wild, right?
But here is the real kicker. The moon. The moon was located in Ardra. This is a lunar mansion governed by Rudra, the Vedic god of storms and howling winds. Ardra is basically the ultimate symbol for violent, moving water and floods that just wash away the past. Within this tradition, having the moon here is a textbook, absolutely classic indicator for destructive, violent water. Next up, Section 3, the karmic axis, Rahu Ketu, also known as the nodes.
Now, we have to look beyond the physical planets to these invisible, intersecting points of the moon's orbit, known as the karmic axis. And what's really fascinating here is the elemental combo. We've got Rahu sitting in a highly volatile fire sign, Aries, and Ketu directly opposite it in a breezy air sign, Libra. Think about it. When you mix fire and air, what happens? It spreads like wildfire, right? It massively amplifies suddenness and instability. Because this specific axis was actively aspecting both the sun and the moon, the tradition reads this as a massive, volatile shift in collective karma.
All right, part 4, Earth signs under siege. Let's talk about the afflicted earth signs.
So, as we all know, tsunamis are born from earthquakes, and in Vedic literature, massive earthquakes almost always involved heavy afflictions to the earth signs. This chart brilliantly illustrates a recurrent pattern we see in major tsunamis, a complete triple affliction of the earth signs. Look at this. Capricorn gets hit by Saturn and Jupiter. Virgo is pressured, but Taurus is taking a massive, simultaneous bombardment from 5 different planets: Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Pluto. It is incredibly rare to see the Earth element under this much concentrated celestial stress.
Which brings us to Section 5, Saturn, Mars, and the Mahadasha. Let's look at the malefics and timelines.
As we piece this giant astrological puzzle together, we absolutely have to look at the heavy hitters, the 2 major malefic planets. Saturn falls perfectly into the 8th house from the Lagna. Now, the 8th house is heavily associated with mortality, making this a classic, unmistakable signature for collective tragedy. Meanwhile, check out Mars. Mars is positioned in Scorpio, right inside a deep aquatic nakshatra called Anuradha. This area governs hidden subterranean depths. It's almost uncanny how Mars perfectly mirrors the violent underwater geological shifts that triggered the waves in the first place.
But you know, a map is just a map. It's static without a timeline.
Vedic astrology uses a predictive system called dashas to figure out exactly when this cosmic potential gets triggered. The overarching era governing this chart was the Rahu Mahadasha, which is an era specifically designated for sudden catastrophes and moving water. Which leads us to a pretty chilling question. When did this specific, volatile era actually officially begin?
Well, the answer is pretty staggering. According to the planetary calculations, this multi-year era of sudden, collective karma officially began on December 26, 2004. Yeah, in a profound, almost eerie synchronicity, the energetic timeline that was meant to trigger all of these underlying planetary pressures clicked into gear on the exact day the tsunami struck the coast of Sumatra.
And finally, Section 6, the Vedic energetic synthesis. Let's bring it all together.
So what does this all mean when we pull the pieces together? The picture is literally staggering. You've got the moon caught up in violent storms, the sun shattering foundations, a massive, multi-planet siege on the Earth's signs triggering the quake, Saturn and Mars combining to dictate deep underwater mortality, and the whole thing is triggered by a karmic timeline that began that very morning. When you stack these elements together, they form one of the most coherent, potent configurations for global devastation ever recorded within this framework.
Now, to be clear, we aren't here to validate this as empirical science, but examining this chart really leaves us with a compelling thought. How does decoding massive global events through these ancient lenses challenge or maybe even expand our understanding of the universe's hidden patterns? It's definitely something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep questioning the patterns around you.